just farting. Nobody's saying anything, farting and laughing, smiling and farting. And it was history, Gene.
Did you laugh?
No, but I recognize the cultural significance of this flatulence.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Ash Candy Ass Lamar has the night off this evening. Unfortunately, her power was taken out by the storms in Texas, so she will not be joining us for Blazing Saddles. She really wanted to be here for this monumental occasion, so Big D will have to labor to carry on without her. Well, each week we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all that information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you'd like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, tonight's film is a special film, and it's a big moment. I was a little nervous because of my history with the director and the writer, Mel Brooks. And I think Ash was thinking she needed to be here to back you up against my expected frontal assault on everything Mel Brooks.
Yeah, this is one of the rare instances where the audience would expect the social justice warriors of the podcast to come out guns blazing against this film and for you to maybe stick up for it. But then you throw in the Mel Brooks element, everything's turned up on its head, and we should get a very interesting podcast tonight.
Yeah, I think this entire podcast will subvert people's expectations. And I think even Ash will be a little surprised. And that's why I'm excited. We went back to Mel Brooks. We've done his films before. We did Robin Hood Men in Tights, History of the World.
Spaceballs.
We did Spaceballs. And that's why I was equal parts excited and equal parts nervous when one of our great listeners, Ed C., wrote in with his third commission for the 1974 satirical Western, Blazing Saddles. And he was kind enough to send in a voicemail explaining in his own words why this movie meant so much to him and why he's decided to support us for the third film going on all these years. So here's Ed.
Hey, Shat crew. This is Ed, and really appreciate the opportunity to commission what I think is one of the greatest films ever made, certainly for what it is, which is a parody film, and maybe the best example of a parody film, maybe Mel Brooks at his finest. This is my third commission, and certainly resonates with me. Mel Brooks and all of his entire catalog was watched by me and my family. I did watch this when it came out, and then it was one of those movies that I remember recording on a VHS off of HBO and watching many times over. Infinitely quotable, brilliant acting, maybe my favorite Gene Wilder role outside of Willy Wonka. Cleavon Little, cannot say enough great things about his performance and how he carries this film. Madeline Kahn, brilliant. Harvey Korman, it just the list goes on. And of course, the absurdity of it and the I think is very poignant, and a lot of I think the humor, most of it still resonates today. So not all of it, but I think it does a great job of also being a pretty meta film. So I last commission, I think I skewed too much towards what I felt in my heart versus objectively what it was with the Muppet movie. With this one, I'm going to go maybe a little bit in the other direction. Is it the best film ever made? No. It is certainly, I think, the best example of what it is. And I would say it's a solid 2 and one of the finest comedies out there. And it's got to be on pretty much any reasonable person's top 10 list of American comedies. Look forward to hearing your review, and just want to say personally how much I appreciate what you guys do. So thanks and enjoy.
Ed, you seem like a genuinely nice guy, and we really, really appreciate the commission and all the support and all the kind words. You don't have to be apologetic about the films that you like, especially this one. This one is well regarded as one of the greatest satire/parody Western films ever made. It was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. It's number 6 on the American Film Institute's 100 Years, 100 Last list. This is bona fide comedy gold. And if we were to say that we didn't care for it, we would be in the minority here.
Yeah, I think, Gene, we've noticed lately that we may have beaten down the commissioners. They've started to come in with expectations of our Shat scores to be much higher than they have been. It's almost like they're trying to hedge against us being disappointed or breaking their hearts.
Now they're going to be apologizing for thinking that we're going to score the other way. And they're going to be like,
it's a complete, yeah. But, and again, Ed, Emma enjoyed the Muppet movie, so that was worth it for that.
Blazing Saddles is a 1974 satirical Western directed by Mel Brooks, starring Cleavon Little and Gene Wilder. The supporting cast includes Slim Pickens, Alex Karras, and David Huddleston, as well as Brooks regulars Dom DeLuise, Madeline Kahn, and Harvey Korman. Bandleader Count Basie has a cameo as himself, appearing with his orchestra. The film is full of deliberate anachronisms, from the Count Basie Orchestra playing April in Paris in the Wild West to Pickens' character mentioning the wild world of sports. In 2006, Blazing Saddles was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress. See, Ed? Even Congress agrees, or at least the Library of Congress, and was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. So I might be biased on this film because I grew up with this in the household on a nearly, I'd say, weekly basis. It was a rite of passage movie in the Lyons house. The older guys got it. The younger kids wanted to get it, and the super young kids wanted to see what everyone else was laughing about. So this was the movie to get your hands on. And I think of all Mel Brooks movies, those that we've covered and those that we haven't yet, this is the one I've seen and quoted the most, and the one I think has the best shot at converting you, Big D, into a Mel Brooks believer.
I would have said before this film there was no chance of that happening. I honestly came into this thinking there was no chance that I could be converted in my thoughts on Mel Brooks. And also, this film is, I thought it was going to be the earliest we've done, but we did one earlier than this, 72, The Godfather. So this was 74, so I did not have a chance to see this in the theater. I was only 1 year old when it came out. And Mel Brooks, even back then, he was a legend in comedy. And that's an understatement. Today, he is revered by many comedians. He's a multiple Oscar nominee, Oscar winner for Young Frankenstein. He's been an actor, writer, producer, director. He's done TV, movies, and Broadway. So he is renowned. So I can't be the only one. I can't be the lone dissenter who's thinking he wasn't good, but I just never got him. I never enjoyed any of his work. So this, I never saw. Everybody talked about it, but until Ed commissioned it, I never went back, and I was never excited to see it. But today, I don't want to completely give it away, but there is a chance that Ed may have swayed me to the Mel Brooks dark side.
Let's hit the trailer.
Torn from the fiery pages of the mightiest annals of the West comes the supreme saga in the great tradition of frontier drama.
Schwarzes.
He rode a blazing saddle, he wore a shining star. His job to offer battle to bad men near and far.
What's your name?
Well, my name is Jim, but most people call me Jim.
Well, do your best. Now, let's see. Where were we? Oh, Rock Ridge. Rock Ridge. I want that land. Clumsy fool. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. There might be legal precedent. Of course. Land snatching. Let's see. Land. Sea snatch.
Hello, handsome. Is that a 10-gallon hat?
So just sign this right here.
Oh, okay, give us a hand here.
All right, sir.
Work.
The heroic sheriff rallies his citizens in the wildest finish the West has ever seen, or the movies have ever shown.
Ow! Oh! Ow! Have you ever seen such cruelty?
In 1874, a new railroad will have to be rerouted through the town of Rock Ridge to avoid quicksand. Territorial Attorney General Hedley Lamar sends a gang of thugs led by his flunky Taggart to shoot the sheriff and trash the town. The townspeople demand that Governor William J. Lepetemain appoint a new sheriff to protect them. So Lepetemain appoints Bart, a black railroad worker, on death row for assaulting Taggart. Lamar thinks a black sheriff will offend the townspeople, create chaos, and leave Rock Ridge at his mercy. So, Big D, we need to get to the elephant in the room. It's the racism, allegedly, in Blazing Saddles.
Mm-hmm.
And when people talk about Blazing Saddles, they say things like, this movie couldn't be made today. And then they cite the racial slurs and humor. And they'll ask, aren't you, Gene Lyons, social justice warrior, offended by this movie? No, I'm not. Blazing Saddles establishes from the first scene, if you are paying attention, that black people are not the butt of the joke. Bart and his friends trick the dumb white boys with Camptown races. Even the devaluing of black lives, like saving the cart from the quicksand or saying that they can't afford to lose horses, so let's send in the N-word. That it's a statement on the inhumanity and greed of white America, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, it is. And Richard Pryor co-wrote this. And Mel Brooks was questioning, much like Django Unchained with Tarantino, is it okay for me to use the N-word as much as I did? And Richard Pryor assured him, he said, yes, as long as the good guys don't say it, as long as it's the bad guys, so that we're making it clear that the racists are the butt of the joke. They are the problem. And I like the fact that they took it head on. It hits you right in the face. It opens up. You get the N-word. There's so many. You have to say them because people haven't seen them. I have to say it. Like Kansas City faggots. I was like, what? Kansas City faggots or chinks? Nigger is said so many times, but the reaction from the African-American cast is almost like half smirking, like knowing like, hey, we're not the idiots. You talked about Camptown races. Or when he says, hey, sing us one of your N-word songs, and they bust into Cole Porter, I get a kick out of you, but they switch the lyrics to I get a belt out of you. It's in your face, but it's clear. It's done in a way that's not simply, you can't just label this as racist or inappropriate humor.
Yeah, thankfully this was a time, and hopefully still today, when people can look at Taggart and go, yeah, this guy is not the hero in the movie, which seems to have been kind of lost on people. I'm looking at you, Walter White fans, who didn't quite get that he's not supposed to be a role model. So we get a core set of rules in this world, in this 1874 world, that are established. It's cruising along beautifully. And I said, this is why people love Blazing Saddles. This is why it sticks out in my memory as such a great comedy. And then it fucking steps in its own shit because they let Mel Brooks on screen. And I know I've defended him in Spaceballs and History of the World, but Mel Brooks as an actor really brings this specific movie down. Big D, I see what you were talking about now with his roles in History of the World, with his roles in Spaceball. Mel Brooks first appears in this movie as a governor. He's puffing on a cigar. He's like staring cross-eyed directly at the camera. He's sliding out of his chair like Jerry Lewis. And don't get me wrong, it's a comedy. People are having fun. It's okay to choose an affect. It's okay to have like a thing that people remember you by. It's okay to be a little slapstick and loosey-goosey, but you don't have to choose all of the affects. You don't have to put them all together. And it reminded me of like high school theater, right? You'd get a kid who got an idea of how they wanted to punch up a character. Sometimes they do it with Shakespeare, which is a really rare choice. And they just ended up annoying everyone around them by being too over the top.
Yeah, I agree. It made me feel like where you have a kid whose father is the coach of the team. It could be baseball, it could be soccer, whatever. The kid's not the best on the team, but he gets the 10 jersey. He gets to go out there and play any position he wants. He's the shortstop. And he doesn't get it because he deserves it. He gets it because he's there. And Mel always puts himself out there. And I feel here, though, contrary to his other films that you listed there, Spaceballs, History, in those he plays in Men in Tights, multiple roles. Here it was early enough that I think somebody reined him in. And his humor that he always goes back to is the same. He's always a position of power, a politician. It's good to be the king. There's going to be some hot young woman that he's going to be sexual with. And he always somehow reverts back to playing a Jewish character in a role that has nothing to do with being Jewish or Yiddish or anything. In this, he plays I think it's a Sioux warrior or a Sioux chief out there. He's in red face, but yet he's speaking Yiddish. It makes no sense because he's always falling back to the lazy comedy he does. And I didn't find it funny.
I thought it was a statement on like Native Americans being the Jews of the Southwest.
I understand that, but you can't explain it in every single movie. He finds a way to, you didn't have to have Yoda, a Jewish Yoda, like everything is a Jew, everything. I got to find a way to mix in a Jewish character because that's my thing, my heritage. I'm from New York. I got to mix it in. It's tired. Get him off screen.
Merchandising. After taking himself hostage to escape angry townfolk, Bart relies on his quick wits and the assistance of Jim, an alcoholic gunslinger known as the Waco Kid, to overcome the townspeople's hostility. Bart subdues Mongo, a giant henchman sent to kill him, then beats seductress for hire Lily von Stupp at her own game. When Mongo informs Bart of the railroad scheme, Bart and Jim visit the railroad worksite and discover the railway is planned to go through Rock Ridge. Taggart and his men arrive to kill Bart, but Jim outshoots them.
So the movie starts, and I'm nervous because of my history with his films. But there's something that feels different right from the first scene. It feels like Blazing Saddles is more serious. It feels like this is something that could be a legitimate Hollywood movie. Now, Mel Brooks' other stuff, I don't want to say like it's cheap because the budgets for like Spaceballs and let's just say Men in Tights, they weren't cheap films. But a lot of times I felt like because they were parodies, they did them in kind of a campy, cheap way that lacked like production value than the original films they were trying to parody. Like Spaceballs, it's supposed to be about Star Wars, high-tech special effects, but then they do stupid jokes like jamming the radar or the lightsaber like ring in your crotch, and it looks bad. Men in Tights had bad costumes and the bad musical numbers, but Blazing Saddles, it starts off and it is fucking beautiful. It's shot on location. They are out there. It looks like a Western of the time. It is cinematic, I dare to say. It's like period appropriate to what you would see. And it is the music comes on and we get that great score. And Ed wrote in after his voicemail and mentioned the singer of the theme song of Blazing Saddle, Frank Lane. The fact that Mel and the production took this to a new level of like seriousness and Hollywood film, they put out a request in Hollywood to get someone to sing a Frank Lane type theme song. And they got back a bunch of song submissions by people that weren't that good. They just went to Frank Lane himself, the man who sang Rawhide, the man who sang Wanted Man. He sang this song and thought it was a legitimate Western. He threw in the bullwhip, whoosh, the Blazing Saddles. The dedication to making this a true Hollywood Western, which was a parody, is like nothing Mel's ever done before.
I don't know that I agree with you on the quality part, because Spaceballs really went above and beyond on a lot of things. I mean, costuming in Spaceballs was absolutely fantastic. And there are some really cheesy sight gags in Blazing Saddles as well. I think the difference is more that Blazing Saddles adheres to a more traditional movie formula. Like, yeah, it eventually breaks the fourth wall and it's incredibly silly, but there is a coherent, tight story, right? Railroad wants to run through town. Headley wants control of town. Black Sheriff is meant to doom town. Sheriff ends up saving town with help of the people and a sidekick. It's just a normal Western with some jokes thrown in. And that works so much better than the clunky vignettes of History of the World. I mean, there were time jumps in History of the World we couldn't explain. Why did you pick that period versus this other period? What does any of this have to do with each other? And even in Spaceballs, you got a sense that it was like a hodgepodge of sci-fi tropes, but not as tight a story as you got here. So it still incorporated all the best qualities of Mel Brooks' other films. But in this case, Blazing Saddles, it is a tight, coherent story that makes a lot of sense. And the discipline to stick to that linear, cohesive storyline, it made those occasional showbiz numbers that Mel Brooks loves to do so much more of a surprise, right? So when we saw like the Inquisition, right, during the History of the World, it's good. It's impressive. There's a lot going on there. There's a swimming number. There's rabbis being tortured. Like, don't get me wrong. It's good. But we all kind of saw it coming. Like, it wasn't a surprise by any means. And you compare that to Lily von Stupp's performance, where she's doing, I'm tired. And then out of nowhere, you think it's over. You think it's just this lady singing to a bunch of cowboys. And these Prussian soldiers burst on stage. They're dancing around. One of the guys is like the little guy. He's giving it his all. Can't you see she's sick? And it works because you just thought you were watching a Western. This has no place in the movie.
See, but I think one of Mel's weaknesses is he just goes too far. He doesn't know when to stop. Now, yeah, I like Madeline Kahn. She's good, but every movie she doesn't need to do a number. She doesn't need to do a yes, 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 no, 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 yes. She's out there singing. I'm like, this is funny. But it just keeps going and it keeps going. I'm like, stop it. I'm like, I'm okay with you reusing all of your characters, Harvey Korman, Dom DeLuise, Madeline Kahn. But you don't need to do the same thing so long.
Are you saying the musical number itself went on too long, or she had too much of a role in the movie?
No, I think she was good. But I'm saying it's almost as if they try to shoehorn the musical numbers in. And this musical, she's tired. I get it. It just like she kept going. And we didn't get anything new out of it after the second like full chorus and verse.
Oh, I disagree. They had to lull us into a sleep so that when the Prussian soldiers burst on stage, it was a fun surprise. They could just come on from the beginning. You know they're there.
Okay. I guess.
Showbiz.
So. Yeah, it's showbiz. You know, and we haven't yet talked about the main characters in the cast. And the chemistry, I think, of Gene Wilder and Cleavon Little. It is one of the reasons why Blazing Saddles was so enjoyable for me. There is a visible and like contagious joy in most of the scenes that they're in together. Emma occasionally has described a boy in her class as, she said, did you see the twinkle in his eye? I was like, no, I did not see the twinkle in his eye. But Gene Wilder, he's got a twinkle that I first thought he must have been high on set, because he is like Willy Wonka, like to the next level. He's smiling, he's looking, and he is just having a good time. And they could be doing nothing. They're sitting at that table when they're meeting and they're playing chess and they're talking about the history of the Waco Kid. They're talking about his role here as the sheriff and what the people in the town think of him. And he goes out there and he says, I'm going to make a difference. He's going to earn their admiration. He walks out the door. He gets the old lady who says, she calls him a nigger. He goes back in again. And the Waco Kid says something like, hey, you know, that's the blunt reality. What'd you think? They're morons. It was a spontaneous moment where it wasn't scripted. And the laughter that you got out of the two was something that you could not get in a script. And for me, it was infectious.
100% agree. This partnership is a Butch and Sundance level Western sidekick action. Like we talked about true Westerns, right? It has that element of a true Western where these guys, they are just charming together. I will never get tired of the interactions between Wilder and Little, whether it's the "but I shoot with this hand" scene or when they appear before all the Klansmen and deliver the "where are all the white women at" line. And we're allowed to believe in these two charming guys being the heroes of the movie because Westerns have this really cool trick, and it's guns and wits, right? Every Western is solved by a combination of guns and wits. And what that allows you to do is you don't need some superhero looking dude. You don't need an action star. You don't even need a guy who's like good at martial arts or any of that. Anybody's believable. Gene Wilder does not look like a killer, but you put a gun in his holster, do a little camera trick, and he could be a killer. Cleavon Little does not look like your traditional sheriff, but he's witty. And so he could be a skinny guy in a, like, what is it, micro suede suit or whatever the hell he's wearing. And you still believe it. And that allowed us to rustle up some genuine charmers like Gene Wilder and Cleavon Little.
Gene, are you up to date on your kid slang?
Yes.
So you know what Riz is, right? Riz?
No, I don't know Riz.
Okay, Riz, like Gene Wilder and Cleavon Little, they got mad Riz. It's charisma. It works because they're charismatic. These are great actors and great roles. And it made me think how much you can do everything to make a movie. You can do everything right. You can get the right director. You can get the right budget, the right script, special effects, the studio behind you. And you can get it undone by a wrong casting. How many movies have we done? We're like, holy shit, how did you almost cast this character? We did Back to the Future. They famously filmed, I think probably about 25 to 30% of the film with Eric Stoltz. And they said, this isn't working. They went back, Bob Gale and Zemeckis, cut him out. And it's a hard decision to do. A lot of a movie's casting and the chemistry, it comes down to luck.
Predator missing out on Jean-Claude Van Damme. It could have been a great movie if they just hired him.
Totally. And when I found out the original casting, these two weren't the first choices, that it was Richard Pryor was supposed to play Bart, but he had such a bad drug habit that the studio couldn't get financing to get insurance that he would show up. So they ended up switching to Cleavon Little. Then Cleavon Little was supposed to play against an actor, Gig Young. He was supposed to play the Waco Kid. But this guy was such an alcoholic that he showed up on set, was having tremors, was sweating, couldn't last a day of shooting. They called Gene Wilder. He flew in. They immediately started filming, and it was gold. So I think luck has a lot to do with films. This with Richard Pryor and a sweaty, like convulsing Gig Young is not the legendary, culturally significant film 50 years later.
Yeah, I would pay money to see any one of these scenes redone by if they were alive, Richard Pryor and Gig Young. I don't want to watch a whole movie like that.
No.
One scene would be great.
No, and we have enough Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor movies that we're probably going to do one day, like Stir Crazy and those. I don't think you could capture that chemistry. Bart is Cleavon Little.
Well, Hedley Lamarr recruits an army of criminals, bikers, Klansmen, Nazis, and Methodists for an assault on Rock Ridge as Bart introduces the white townspeople to the black, Chinese, and Irish railroad workers who have all agreed to help the town. They labor all night to build a perfect copy of Rock Ridge as a diversion.
So, Jane, we've already discussed that this film has been designated as culturally significant. And when people discuss this movie, usually it's about the parody and the discussion of Hollywood racism. But as a host on a podcast that has Shat in the name, and that we have a scoring system which is themed around taking a shit, we have to give Blazing Saddles its recognition for its place on bodily function and bathroom-based humor. And I know you, as someone who is big into reading, you've already mentioned Shakespeare. You know Shakespeare's got his own fair share of fart jokes. This film has the distinction of being the first film to have an audible fart in cinematic history. It broke ground. It made history. And as Shat the Movies, we have to respect the demonstration of flatulence on screen here. It is not somebody letting a little squeaker out or a wet fart or somebody having an accident. It is a full campfire with like maybe 30 like ranch hands, all eating beans, bread, nothing else, just farting, Nobody's saying anything, farting and laughing, smiling and farting. And it was history, Gene.
Did you laugh?
No, but I recognize the cultural significance of this flatulence. I mean, we've had other fart jokes, right? So I was trying to think of like funny fart humor. And I caught like John C. Reilly in Step Brothers, the interview farts. The fat bastard farts? No, they're terrible. But they stood on the back of Blazing Saddles farts in order to get made. You have things like the fatties in Tropic Thunder, which is a take on, the Nutty Professor. The one I thought back and laughed was Frank Drebin in Naked Gun, when he's giving the speech about the Queen coming to town, and then he walks off and he has the microphone on and he starts into the bathroom and he's singing Sweet Chariot and he's peeing and he's farting. We've had some funny fart humor.
Yeah, that one's special because it's the pee, the fart interrupts the pee. So it's like and then it goes back. And that's it really, it's a genius one. What about when Boris popped up in this movie? I know you weren't a big fan of Boris the Executioner in Robin Hood Men in Tights, but this is his debut. Did you find him any funnier in Blazing Saddles?
I thought the setup and the absurdity of Boris in this environment, that Boris is a civil servant, he is an employee of the government, and he's out there disturbing the business that's going on. And the fact that he's hanging a guy in a wheelchair, they're hanging a horse and a guy simultaneously. I was okay with Boris. He wasn't my favorite, but I could tolerate him in this role.
I couldn't possibly fit him in until Monday.
No,
at the earliest.
2 other guys are homesick with the flu. It's a chaos down here. Yeah, I could tolerate a little bit of it.
This one is a doozy.
Yes. Yeah.
But, I mean, and that's the thing about this movie, that things that don't normally work on me somehow worked on me here. Sight gags. I'm not a big fan of sight gags. There are a few shots in Blazing Saddles that pan like way out, and you can see the whole set, like you said, Big D, this big set that they built, all the actors involved, and it is a mob. There are a lot of things going on screen, and that gave the movie the ability to incorporate a ton of sight gags. But unlike a lot of other Mel Brooks movies, they kind of just let them happen, and if you notice them, you notice them, and if you don't, you don't, and that's okay. There's a scene, I don't know if you saw it, there's a little boy, and he's being dragged down the street by like 3 dogs. It is an actual child just being dragged down the street by dogs. They never address it. There's the Santa Maria guy, which I don't know why is fucking funny to me. All that madness happening during the French Mistake, like the little dance number. But in this viewing, I noticed something that I'd never seen before. There's a guy, he's a biker on a horse. So he's like sitting on the horse, but he's got the motorcycle, like the chopper set up. It looked like Bob Morales from La Bamba.
It did. Yeah, because if you go, they get all of the people he requested. Because Headley wanted rustlers, cutthroats. He wanted murderers, bounty hunters, desperados. Those were desperados, I think. He wanted mug pugs, thugs, nitwits, half-wits, dimwits, vipers, snipers, con men, Indians, Mexican bandits, murderers, buggers, bushwhackers, the whole list. And they're there. Yes, they're all there. It's great. But it devolves into a little bit of a Looney Tunes. There's like exploding boxes in people's faces. There's a lot of like, I was expecting somebody to paint a doorway onto a wall and run through. And that shit works for me. It was just so unpredictable and it was wild. And yeah, it was a lot more forgiving this time.
Bart, Jim, and Mongo buy time by constructing the Governor William J. Lepetamine Thruway, forcing the raiding party to send for change to pay the toll. Once through the toll booth, the raiders attack the fake town, which is laced with dynamite. The resulting brawl between the townsfolk, railroad workers, and Lamar's thugs breaks the fourth wall and bursts onto a neighboring movie set where director Buddy Bazaar is filming a musical number. The brawl then spreads into the studio commissary for a food fight and then onto the streets of Burbank. So it's about time we talked about Taggart. Now, Taggart, to me, might be the funniest movie character of all time. He's like the main henchman for Headley Lamar. From the get-go, we get that, what in the wide world of sports is going on here? Or, the famous line, you use your tongue purtier than a $20 whore. I couldn't stop laughing anytime this man would talk. And sometimes in film, we get bad performances of great writing. And sometimes you get great performances of bad writing. And in these rare magic moments, we get performances like Taggart saying things like, somebody's got to go back and get a shitload of dimes. It's just brilliant.
It's so good. I think it works because you put him opposite Harvey Korman as Headley, and their interactions are hilarious, from the head injury in the beginning to the where's my froggy? Where's my froggy? Daddy loves froggy. And he slips and his hand goes into the tub. He's great. He is a great character.
We should also give a shout out to Wyatt, which is Taggart's like sidekick guy. That guy's absolutely fantastic. He is the face I see anytime I'm interacting with a dipshit on Facebook. Like, it's that guy. Camp down fucking racist. Lamar escapes the brawl and takes a taxi to hide at the Man's Chinese Theater, which is showing the premiere of Blazing Saddles. As he settles into his seat, he sees on-screen Bart arriving on horseback outside the theater. Bart blocks Lamar's escape and shoots him in the groin. Bart and Jim then enter the theater to watch the end of the film, in which Bart announces to the townspeople that he is moving on. Riding out of town, he finds Jim and invites him along to Nowhere Special.
So I'm surprisingly finding myself enjoying the film as it goes. And I've watched it, I think, twice since completely, and I enjoy it each time more. And I'm finding myself, as we're getting towards the end here, I'm trying to think, how is this movie going to end? Because it has to end in a traditional way. I'm thinking it's going to be a Western. It's going to be a standalone Western. They're going to ride off into the sunset. You're going to get a Western ending. We're going to get the town is saved. You got Bart is now accepted by the community. You got the Waco kid maybe becomes like the deputy. No. This movie breaks the mold in satirical comedy, and it breaks the fourth wall, the fifth wall, the sixth wall. It goes from they build an in-world fake town, which is revealed to be fake. They go down and try to like fight off this band of desperados and the bikers and all that. They go through the wall, end up in the back lot in Burbank in the Warner Brothers back studio. That fight spills into other productions, that then fills into the commissary, spills into the street, spills into an in-world showing of the movie where the characters enter to learn what's going to happen. They then spill back out. It is wild, and it is something that I was not predicting, and I think it makes the movie so different. It changed from the satire of Westerns into Hollywood as a whole, and it made this film and the ending very unique in a way that I was not anticipating.
How is this movie not an audience participation flick, like nationally? Like, I don't get, like, we saw Rocky Horror Picture Show together, you and I.
Yes.
And it's hard to imagine that movie like being popular without audience participation, right? Like, if you just sit down and watch Rocky Horror Picture Show and there was no culture built around it, it gets entertaining, but it's not like, wow, you know, you need that extra element. This movie has so many of the same elements, but it never got that treatment. There's so many quotable lines. There's that in-theater madness. You could see like that pie fight with Hitler saluting in the background, like all sped up. The musical number at the end. There's absolute chaos going on. And I'm like, man, how has nobody done this? Or if they have, how have I not heard about it?
No, you have the dimes. Do you know also there were so many jokes that because we're now 50 years later, like the bull that Mongo rides on, and you talk about great quotes when Mongo says, Mongo only pawn in game of life. When he's driving into town and it says it says like on, off, or it said safe, pass, no pass, or whatever on the test, because that used to be on the back of buses. Like you could pass on one side, not on the other. Talking about what we could do in theater, do you know the Klansman's hoods and the back said "Have a nice day"? The joke is the Chinese takeout bags of the time used to say "Have a nice day." So the Klansman's hoods are the takeout bags from a Chinese restaurant.
Oh, wow.
That you could incorporate those bags somehow. There's so many jokes in this. There's a line in there where Cleavon turns to the town folk when he says, you know, we could do this. And they said something like, no, we couldn't. And they're not listening to him. He goes, would you listen to George Randolph Scott? And they go, yeah, we would. He was an American actor.
Randolph Scott.
Yes, he was an actor who used to play like the leading man in all of these like Westerns. So in world, there's so many things we could do.
Also, allegedly, was in a gay affair with Cary Grant. They had a house together with a pool. Just two bachelors, you know. Living it up.
Yeah, two guys, just living it up.
Dudes just living it up.
Yeah, just having a great time. No ladies around, just dudes.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know why I specified a gay affair. It was just an affair.
Yeah, we're having a good time, man. They were just
happy to be gay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now is the time of the podcast where we give our Shat score for Blazing Saddles. A Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is Randolph Scott. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It is being the leading asshole in the state. In scoring Blazing Saddles, I had to go back and check my Spaceballs score. Big D evoked Spaceballs.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered that was 0 wipes. I remember really enjoying that. Raj and I were laughing our asses off. And that makes sense because Spaceballs avoided a critical mistake that Blazing Saddles was too naive and unseasoned to avoid. Again, this was, years before. This is 1974. Namely, it was letting Mel Brooks be a little too exuberant. You want to make him yogurt? That's fine. You want to make him President Scroob? That's fine. Both of those are a far cry from the unforced error that was Governor Lepetamain. I mean, think if you would have had Governor Lepetamain played by another actor as talented as, say, a Harvey Korman, right? Fuck it. Put Dom DeLuise in there. It'd be fine. Burt Reynolds. Great. Not so much on Mel Brooks. This one's half white for me.
No, and I think even though I appreciate the fact that we got a little Mel Brooks and, a little Mel Brooks goes a long way, I'm going to go a little bit worse than you. I think it's a 0.75 wipe. I'm shocked in saying that I've enjoyed this each time I've watched it. And when I turn it on, I find something new to appreciate or just respect it more for what it did. I can't believe there was no fart jokes at this time, Gene. Just talking about fart jokes, right? What do
really
you
on
think?
The fart joke?
No, but I'm just saying what a different world it is, right? When we think about okay, how long ago was it that women couldn't vote? You would think in your head, oh man, that had to have been 100 years ago, and you find out that no, it's not that long ago. That 50 years ago, you couldn't fart in a movie. So when you got somebody coming out the chute calling people chinks and, Kansas City faggots, people must have been like, holy shit, we cannot put this movie out. This movie was bold. It was brave. It is easily Mel Brooks's best comedy. I see why people consider it to be iconic and important. People now are going to say it's not politically correct. You couldn't make this movie again, but it makes a good point. The racist people, you shouldn't be afraid to say it if it makes them look like the butt of the joke. I think it was great performances. 50 years later, this shit's as relevant. It's as brave. It's as funny. It's good. I would have done a 0.5 wipe if we had cut Mel Brooks' time down and gotten, like you said, Dom DeLuise in there. But yeah, 0.75 wipe.
All right, with 3/4 of a wipe from you and half a wipe from me, that gives us an average wipe score of 625 1,000ths of a wipe for Blazing Saddles.
So, Gene, that is a very impressive score. That now puts it up into our top 40.
Wow.
It is slightly better. This is going to upset people. This is going to be controversial. It is slightly, when I say slightly, people, this is top 40 out of almost 400 movies. Slightly better than Die Hard, Groundhog Day, Good Will Hunting, The Fugitive, and Interview with a Vampire. Slightly worse, very slightly, Dances with Wolves, American Beauty, Full Metal Jacket, Goodfellas, and Happy Gilmore.
I think that depending on the kind of day you had, the mood you're in, what you feel like watching. Remember, folks out there, if you're a normal human being, right, and it's the weekend, you and your sweetheart, you want to go to the movies, and you go, honey, baby, are you in the mood for a comedy, a drama, an action movie, a parody? You have a choice there, a musical, right? We don't have that choice. We watch what you commission. And so I think that in any of these films, depending on the week, the mood, what you're into, could have gone up or down by probably about a quarter wipe. Not talking wild swings, but those little differences make a little difference.
Yeah, but I think when you get into that top echelon, it is like you said, it could be getting into a fight at work. It could be the littlest thing that has changed that score. But this is a film that if it's on, I'm going to stop and watch it.
Exactly. I'd say anything in our top 50, even if I don't feel like watching it, if it's on, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and probably watch it. I'm going to need somebody else to shut it off for me.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
All right, Ed. I think that does a little bit better than the 2 wipes you predicted. So we thank you for this commission. We thank you for commissioning the Muppet movie, and thank you for all of your support throughout the years. And before we close out, we have some voicemail and email. The first one comes to us from Hal Pickens.
Hey guys, my name's Hal. I just want to say I am a huge fan of the podcast. Definitely my top favorite rewatchable movie podcast show, especially for the movies that I grew up on. My dad used to work for Paramount Pictures when I was a kid. He was a film distributor, and we had endless tapes, VHS tapes. Is almost like a mini blockbuster once a week that would come through, and I would rewatch those movies at least a dozen times each. One of my favorites that I'm hoping maybe you guys could do a show on is the 1980 film Stir Crazy with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. Definitely have a lot of good memories watching that as a kid. The chemistry between Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor was just absolutely amazing. I know a lot of other people have more favorite films than Stir Crazy with those two duo, but it was definitely on the top of my list. So hoping you guys could do it. Big D, you crack me up. Love the show, guys. Talk to you soon.
I'm starting to think the theme there of like the great chemistry might be Gene Wilder.
And black people.
Well, I don't know. What other black people has he been with?
Richard Pryor.
Yeah, the two. Was it only two black people?
Well, you're just saying. I mean, that's what these movies have in common. It's Gene Wilder.
Okay, maybe that could sound.
Well, okay, I guess. Well, maybe. I mean, yeah, he was also good in Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, I think it was good. I think that would be a great one to do. I mean, we have coming up Superman 2, I believe.
Yeah.
Actually, Richard Pryor's in 3. Oh, no, it may be 4. I'm going to fuck that. I don't remember which one it was.
What? Last week you were like the fucking Superman 2 expert.
No, yes. No, that's why I was thinking about it. Superman 2 it's with the 3 Kryptonians who come down. I'm thinking about 4 where Richard Pryor plays the computer programmer.
Could you imagine if Richard Pryor was just one of the Kryptonians? It's like Zod and then Richard Pryor. He just floats down to Earth. Does that step down?
A little odd. Smooth. Yeah, but I would definitely be up there because they've done a couple movies together. See No Evil, Hear No Evil. They did a bunch of those films. But yes, I would be open to that.
Timely, Hal. It's almost like that voicemail matched up perfectly with this episode. Way to go. Our next voicemail comes from Riley calling in about movies from the 2000s.
Hey guys, it's Riley calling. Hope everything's going good over where you guys are at. Listen, so I was just curious. I was looking through your calendar the other day, and I was seeing stuff for next week, which by now this episode, the episode that this is probably going on is probably past the movie already, but I saw you guys were doing Elf, and I think Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah, we'll eventually do those.
So you guys were doing that, and those movies, and I was wondering if you guys are now going in more into the 2000s realm of movies, if that's what you guys are doing now, that's rad. I've been looking forward to when you guys were gonna branch off and do more of that, because honestly, like, there's so many movies I've been wanting to hear you guys talk about. It's like mainly like the Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy would be cool for you guys to do, or like the Lord of the Rings trilogy would be rad. And even it would be cool for you guys to finish off the Star Wars prequels. I mean, like, I commissioned Phantom Menace a couple years ago. That'd be cool for you guys to finish off another trilogy there. Kind of add that to your list of completed trilogies. But yeah, mainly just wanted to see what you guys were, if you guys were doing that, which if so, rad. But yeah, as you guys have mentioned before, there's so many other 80s and 90s movies you haven't even touched yet. So like, you guys have so much other stuff. So if it's only these movies you guys are doing just for specific reasons, cool. But yeah, just curious about that. Gene, congratulations on getting married, my man. Good job. I don't know. Good job feels weird. But yeah,
it works.
Right on that, man. That's cool. Marriage is rad. Right on, man. And Hope Ash is doing good. She's been off for a while. I know she's talked about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, so hopefully, like, she is around for that one. But again, if she can't, like, life just kind of throws you curveballs, right? Like, sometimes, like, you just find yourself busy doing other things. So, that's cool. I love the two-man pod. I really dig in just the two of you, just basically just shooting the shit.
He's hitting on all cylinders.
I love it. I'm really enjoying what you guys are doing. And just lastly, I know I've gone on a bit. I haven't called in for a while, but when I have the funds, I'd love to commission a movie. The two that I'm looking at are possibly Batman Returns and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, just because I want to hear you guys do a bad movie and shit on it. But anyway, you guys take care. My time's going up, and you guys have a good one. All right, bye.
Well, Riley of the past, have I got some news for you, friend?
Yes.
Couple of things. One, Ash is doing great. Unfortunately, she couldn't be on this episode because they had a power outage there because of the storms in Texas, but she's doing wonderful. She's advanced to now editing podcasts as well, so a fully fledged member of the team and kicking all kinds of ass. We can't wait to have her back. As far as the 2000s go, I think we have Invictus. I think that we're settling in on two ways that we'll approach the 2000s. One is obviously special episodes, like the one that we're doing for Invictus, which will be a live recording on Twitch and YouTube, which will release just barely edited. So it kind of jumps outside of the framework of what we normally do. And the other one I think is pretty fair is if a person is a repeat commissioner, they've really, really supported the podcast a ton, and there's just a movie they gotta see and have us review from the 2000s. I think I'm willing to finally bend Gene's rules a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful of you, Gene.
Thank you.
That is nice of you, and I've always respected your opinion, and I think that we've between Ash, yourself, and I, that we've decided that it's a good way to do it, because every time that we think, let's go to the 2000s, we have to. You realize there are so many important films that we've not done. And Riley, you mentioned that you would like to finish the prequel trilogy. We just received a batch of commissions, 5 films in total from Jeremiah. Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Star Wars A New Hope, Running Man, First Contact Star Trek, Matrix Reloaded. These are films that you're like, how are we moving on to the 2000s when we have so many important... We're going to finish the Die Hard trilogy right around Christmas this year. And I think we only move on when it's important. And we do have a 2000s movie besides the one you mentioned. Is it Invictus? Is Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I might worry if he mentioned like, hey, that it probably wouldn't go well or it's challenging, because most of his predictions have hit. He might call in a voicemail that we get that he called back in like February and mentioned storms in Houston.
I mean, that's not really much of a prediction. Thanks, Riley, for calling in. Next up, we have an email from Taylor S. calling in about Remo Williams. It says, hey, gang, as with most of the Shat crew, I've been with you since COVID. My story is rather different, but that's for another time. The purpose of this email is to requisition a particularly Shat-tastic film that I'm truly stunned hasn't come up. And I have to wonder if maybe it has and it's just too much. I'm talking, of course, about Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, a delight of 80s tropes, including not only an epic hero training montage and a pre-Star Trek and utterly sensual Kate Mulgrew, but the worst of all worsts, song and dance man Joel Grey in Yellowface as the surly and endearing Chun, the master and sole practitioner of a fake martial art. For me, this was a day out with my grandmother that turned into a yearly watch fest. That turned into a cringeworthy exercise in bad books gone worse movies. Oh, I didn't mention, this is the sole film in what I'm sure would have been an amazing series of films based on the Destroyer series of novels, not to mention a launching point for Fred Ward, who I sadly didn't meet again until Tremors. I'd love to commission this film and wait the year until you finally get to getting it in. Ash, I'm thrilled you're back. I love you and all the community we built together. Big D, I'd be stunned if you haven't got a fond memory of this one. And Gene, the martial arts alone, I need you to opine. I've been thinking about this for a couple years now, and truthfully, I kind of thought it's the Yellowface part that's prevented this from already being commissioned. And if that's not the case, I'm all over it. Did I mention that Wilford Brimley is a computer nerd? And that comes from Taylor.
Taylor, one of Gene's favorite things is mystical Asians. The Chum character, yes, he is the best of all worlds. Yes, and Fred Ward just recently passed away in May of 22. I have fond memories of this film. As someone who grew up in New York, I remember right around the 86 4th of July, they were renovating the Statue of Liberty. So they were fixing the torch, they were fixing the crown, and they had erected scaffolding around the Statue of Liberty as they were fixing it. not spoiler alert, but I think the end of this movie takes place on the scaffolding around the Statue of Liberty, and Fred Ward, Remo Williams, uses his mystical Asian powers to defeat the forces of bad in Wilford Brimley. It's fantastic. Yes, please. Someone else had talked about commissioning it a while ago, and it just kind of fell through. But yeah, this is a Shat the Movies movie.
Well, all right, Taylor. Sounds like that's a go. Again, if you'd like to write into us and let us hear from you, you can write us host@shatpod.com or go to shatpod.com and use the SpeakPipe feature to leave us a voicemail. We'll do our best to get them in the upcoming episodes. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week's going to be a great feel-good movie. It's going to be good times and laughs all around. Tormented by the guilt following the death of his older brother, Buck, in a sailing accident, alienated teenager Conrad attempts suicide, returns home following an extended stay in a psychiatric hospital. Conrad tries to deal with his mental anguish and also reconnect with his mother, Beth, who has grown cold and angry and has emotionally wounded father, Calvin. With the help of his psychiatrist, and this was commissioned by Shannon C., came out in 1980, an Academy Award-winning film. But this will be not many laughs, as we had in Blazing Saddles.
Now, this is going to be a tough one for me because, as you know from the Magnolia episode, I am not very sympathetic to the plight of the affluent, so I might be biased there. But at the same time, Robert Redford directed, winner of the Academy Award for Best Picture, could be the quality that sways me. I'm excited for this one.
Agreed.
Well, thank you, Shannon, for your upcoming commission. Thank you, Ed, for commissioning Blazing Saddles. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all the information on our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. Review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all the information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
In this typical town, in this comfortable home, 3 ordinary people are about to live an extraordinary story.
It's starting all over again. The lying, the covering up, the disappearing for hours. I will not stand for it. I can't stand it. I really can't.
What kind of psychiatrists are you? They all believe in dreams. I do believe in dreams. Only sometimes I want to know what's happening when you're awake.
I don't want to see any doctors or counselors. This is my family. And if we have problems, then we will solve those problems in the privacy of our own home.
I knew something was wrong even before he tried to kill himself.
I think it is a very private matter.
You never came to the hospital. How do you know about the hospital?
Your mother did come to the hospital, Conrad, and you know that.
I just don't know how to deal with it anymore.
Why are you hassling me, huh? Why are you trying to make me mad?
Are you mad?
No!
He provokes people.
I would never have let him put electricity in my head.
You blame me for the whole thing.
Can't you see anything except in terms of how it affects you?
I miss it sometimes. The hospital.
But that was a hospital. This is the real world. Did it hurt?
We've never really talked about it. How long are you going to punish yourself? When are you going to quit?
I loved him. What in hell has happened?
That she hates me. Can't you see that?
Mothers don't hate their sons.
I mean, there's someone besides your mother you got to forgive.
You better make sure that your kids are good and safe. And then you come to me and tell me how to be happy.
Do you love me? Do you really love me?
Just do one wrong thing.
And what was the one wrong thing you did?
Donald Sutherland, Mary Tyler Moore, Judd Hirsch, Timothy Hutton, in an extraordinary story of ordinary people.